Good morning, everybody. Thank you again so much for being here this morning. My name is Marjorie Delgadillo. I am the Family Collaborative Director with Sacramento Steps Forward. And thank you again for joining us today for the Family Housing Accelerator Request for Proposal Application Information session. We want to welcome everyone who is joining us this morning. My name again is Marjorie Delgadillo. My pronouns are she and her. This session is being recorded for anybody who is unable to attend today or would like to go back or share the information with colleagues or community. Please feel free to visit our website, our landing page, and we will also follow up with materials from this morning's presentation. So we do have a few hours carved out to spend with you this morning, but don't anticipate that it will take the full length, but if it does, that's great. We do ask you all to hold questions for the end. We will be in a Zoom meeting format. This is not a webinar format, so we will have Q&A. We will be in a space that is really more welcoming, not as restrictive. We really want to be able to hear from you all. So we chose not to make it a webinar format, but to really be able to hold this space with you and to be able to hear back and share some insight. So next slide, please. Okay, and so these are our objectives for this morning. The purpose in the background is to develop an understanding of the Family Housing Accelerator pilot project. We will go into the details, understanding the requirements for the proposal, and learn about Sacramento Steps Forward's process, tools, resources, going into the key dates and the score and methodology. We will also be asking for your information, your insights in terms of a poll. So why don't we go into the next slide? This is our agenda. We will do a warm welcome. Again, I really appreciate folks joining in, giving their morning greetings, their agency. We will be asking for a little bit more detail from our audience as we will launch a poll shortly, just to get a little bit more insight on who's in the room and who is joining with us today. We'll go into the background of Sacramento Steps Forward, specifically into the background of this Housing Accelerator pilot project, then the meat and potatoes of it, the process requirements and timelines. We'll talk about the selection and award process, and then give the audience time for a Q&A. So kindly, again, if you could hold some of the questions till the end where we have our Q&A. Next slide. So as many of you have already started doing, if you could just please share your name, pronouns, title, agency, and if you could also add one thing that you would like to get out of this info session, that would be great. We want to make sure that we are here to not only share our information, but to really be able to answer any questions and concerns or anything that was left maybe unclear. And we really want to be able to answer that with you all today. So why don't we go into our poll? So in this morning's poll, the first question is, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you're representing today, and feel free to check all that apply. And we'll be able to see the answers in real time. So that way we're able to know who's engaging. Just from the list of registers, we were able to see that it's a mix of executives, direct program staff, folks with lived experience, people who are currently experienced being houseless. And we really want to be able to share with you all. Looks like we are getting some responses right now. With executive staff, management staff looking like the lead. We also have our Housing Family First Collaborative members and community-based organizations taking the pie for who is joining us today. So thank you again, warm welcome to all. Asking for question number 2, does your organization provide direct services to families experiencing or at risk for homelessness? Most of you answered yes. Number 3, has your organization applied for Sacramento Steps Forward request for proposals at any time in the past? Seems like it's pretty even. Some have, some haven't. And question number 4, have you had a chance to review the Family Rehousing Accelerator pilot RFP? Most of you have, even if it's just to skim it. Glad to know that. So there's some base knowledge. And initial thoughts on the RFP have been positive. Seems that at least half of you are excited, with a little bit over a quarter that need more information. So I'm glad you all are here so we can dive into more info. And then there are some concerns. Seems that the timeline and the scope are popping up as the biggest draws for concern. And noted, the timeline is something that we've discussed since the beginning of the relaunch of the collaborative, knowing that this is a tight turnaround because of the 100% expenditure date for funds from the Bezos Day One Family Fund of November 2026. So the timeline is what it is because of that 100% expenditure date. We do understand that it is such a short turnaround, but this is why it has been so critical to be able to work with collaborative members who are part of the community, who are a representation of those in the room today, who are executives, directors, leads in their departments, a mix of city, county, and community-based organizations, as well as people with lived experience, and representatives also of transitional age youth who have attended our meetings and our information sessions in the past. So thank you all so much for participating in the poll. And I believe we can share these results. And we'll stop sharing so we can move on to the next portion of our presentation. And we will also be getting into the scope of work. I don't want to just gloss over that. I know that that was the second biggest concern, and we'll dive into the details. And again, we will hold a large portion of this presentation to answer and go into the Q&As. So Sacramento Steps Forward. Who is Sacramento Steps Forward? and what is the mission and vision. Um, if you are new to Sacramento Steps Forward, welcome. Sacramento Steps Forward's vision is to have an equitable community where everyone has a safe place to call home. Our current core services fall under the categories of leadership, system planning, coordinated entry, and fund and data management. While this training is specifically for our Family Housing Accelerator project, um, the trainings that Sacramento Steps Forward produce are broadly intended to strengthen our community's capacity to address system-wide challenges in homeless response by partnering with and convening key stakeholders, coordinated service delivery, and administering funding and HMIS. Sacramento Steps Forward will flag the important resources, but recommend you to go deeper into the resources on your own as we look at our core services. Sacramento Steps Forward is your grant partner. We will provide comprehensive housing support for at least 150 vulnerable families, guiding them towards long-term stability with short-term rental subsidies, housing navigation, landlord-tenant engagement, case management, and support services. These are the three pillars of the Family-Focused Housing Accelerator pilot project. Shortly, this is a short discussion about the Housing Families First Collaborative and how we got started. Next slide. So who comprises the Housing Families First Collaborative? Um, this is the body of people, again, as mentioned earlier, who are really holding the helm, the body of this work, who have come together, who have looked at the scope of work, who have looked at the requirements, the scoring sheets. Many of our members are in this presentation today, but it really consists of Sacramento Steps Forward staff, myself, Director Naomi Del Rio, Ayana McGee, who are in the virtual space with us today. We also base it on the Built for Zero model. We partner and hold at anchor to our mission and vision, the Black Child Legacy Project, knowing that homelessness affects our Black community at a large capacity more than any other. And looking at who our collaborative members are, they are housing providers, they are city and county employees, they are also, again, community-based organizations, direct staff, and members of our community with direct lived experience. Next slide. We'll go into the RFP details now. So the project overview. The timeline for those who are concerned about the short and the length of the timeline, this right now is really the really phase one, I would say, of our timeline. We're looking at the release until the contracts begin. So again, thinking about our three main pillars that are short-term rental subsidies, housing navigation, landlord-tenant engagement, case management, and support services. Right now, we are currently focused in on the green, as these are the next steps that are key dates to making sure that phase 2 and 3 are possible. So today, being March 11th, we are hosting the RFP informational session. We are open and welcome. We have shared the RFP email, so you can also feel free to send any questions. If you don't feel comfortable sharing questions out loud today, please feel free to follow up with questions directly to the email. My email is also added to the RFP. I will share that in the chat for anybody who has any following questions. You can also email me directly there. And we will be accepting questions up until March 24th. March 25th, proposals are due. April 1st, proposals, thresholds, reviews will begin with the review panel independently working as well as coming together in a group effort to review mid-April after scoring the applications. We will begin interviews with finalists April 15th, and we will review panel meetings on April 18th with notifications going out on April 22nd. The appeals window is from April 22nd to the 29th. We are giving ourselves from May 1st to June 30th to execute contracts with monitoring plans for the fiscal year of July 1st to begin contracts. So that is initially phase 1. Next slide. I'm sorry, Naim, I think that we skipped one slide. Could you go back one? Maybe skip one ahead. Is the funding slide? That's what I have. Sorry, folks. Give us one moment. Okay. Apologies. Let's just go into our service area. Oh. Okay, apologies. Let's dive into our funding available, and then we will we'll go into the service area. So for funding available, this is the breakdown. So the 2.8 that you see here is for rental assistance budget. The program can provide up to 12 months of rental assistance, but really looking to provide on average anywhere between 4 to 8 months of rental assistance. Rent administration can likely be done for less than $250,000. Again, looking to really be able to provide housing navigation, case management, rental assistance to a minimum of 150,000 households. And a proposed case management ratio of 1 to 25 would result in about 12 case managers at an estimated cost of $75,000 per case manager for a total cost of about $900,000, not including supervision. An estimated cost to support a household with landlord engagement and tenancy supports for 2 years is about $1,450 per household. And if CalAIM is leveraged, the length of rental assistance could possibly be extended further. And indeed, we are and we will be seeking proposals that demonstrate an ability to integrate CalAIM enhanced case management and or the housing trio of community supports to resource to help families receive comprehensive care beyond housing, leveraging other supports such as housing support services, the HSP program, or behavioral health services are strongly encouraged. Next slide. So the service areas. As we look at the service areas, we are focusing in on housing navigation and landlord engagement, assuring that families are assessed to remove any housing barriers and preferences and assist with location appropriate housing options, knowing that some of the families who face barriers from our case conferencing support service workers, we've heard that sometimes it can be larger families who are facing barriers. And so being able to assess and provide assistance and be able to take in preferences to support and locate appropriate housing options for families. Move-in and rental assistance. Rental subsidies must be provided using a progressive engagement approach that is periodically reassessed based on household resources and needs. This model allows flexibility for providers to determine the amount of rental assistance necessary to support the household in achieving self-sufficiency. Looking at case management and support services, projects will provide direct or through referrals, ongoing case management to address families and housing health challenges. Case managers will work thoroughly with individualized plans to help family households increase income, enroll in mainstream benefits, and access supports and resources that encourage stability and long-term housing retention. Great. And I do see that we are getting some questions in the chat. And I do say thank you, Ayana, for answering some. I know that we want to hold questions to the end. And we will be able, as we go into more of the presentation, hopefully we will be able to answer some of these in the presentation. If we do not answer them directly, please feel free to bring them up in the Q&A. But want to assure that we're getting through the slides. And next slide, please. So eligible applicants. Be a nonprofit organization. That means having a 501c3 status that demonstrates the necessary expertise, experience, and capacity to deliver these proposed program services. Eligible applicants, meaning that it could be one applicant, it could be 1 to 3 applicants going into the RFP together. Being able to administer services through racial equity-based and culturally responsive housing first and trauma-informed approach is key. We are looking to really be able to support and fund providers who have at least 2 years experience in successfully providing housing or services to people experiencing homelessness and that meet the financial and insurance requirements. Yeah, these are our non-negotiables. And looking on it, we presume that most likely it'll be 1 to 3 agencies who may be awarded the funding. But again, it depends on the applicants. It depends if there are a group of CBOs going in together. So that should answer some of the questions. I believe Jill had that question in the chat. Next question, or next slide. So the delivery summary, we talked about the phases. And really, I had talked about us being in phase one, but it's almost like the intro to phase one, with phase one really kicking off in July and up to the fall, up till September, because this is the sort of onboarding ramp up where we will be executing contracts, supporting training needs, and facilitating the referrals for the first group of families as Sacramento steps forward. The providers, those who we've identified as the recipients of the funds, uh, will be enrolling families, will be onboarding their staff for housing navigation, case management, and landlord and tenant engagement. So that will be late summer through the early fall. And then phase two, it's going to be nearly a 1-year phase from October of 2025 right up until October 1st of 2026. That's where we will be, as Sacramento steps forward, providing monitoring and supports through expense reports and assuring that we are monitoring those KPIs on a quarterly basis. The providers will be providing housing placements, rental assistance, and ongoing case management and tenancy supports. That's for about a full year. And then phase three is from October 1st to the end of November, where providers will evaluate and report project outcomes to see if there are legs to possibly take this further than a pilot project. And we, as Sacramento steps forward as the contractor, will be evaluating and reporting the summary of this pilot project. Funding details. So here are the funding details and available. So we had talked, it's a 4.5 million grant that was awarded to Sacramento Steps Forward to re-grant back out to other nonprofit organizations that are pursuing solutions to family homelessness with a strong focus on providing housing as well as being able to braid in social services, skills training, and job support. This is all to assist families in transitioning to and remaining in permanent housing. Examples of eligible activities include diversion, street outreach, low barrier shelters, rehousing, and connection to services. Next slide. And taking a look at the funding details, you'll notice that the last two, in terms of behavioral health and physical health, are not able to be funded by this specific RFP, which is why, again, we will be looking at proposals that are able to braid in supports from other key stakeholders, such as CalAIM, ECM, and I do want to give acknowledgement to the Housing Crisis Stabilization third row from the bottom, that yes, this will be covered specifically by this RFP. This is after feedback from our collaborative members who were able to, again, dive in and be able to give insights and be able to articulate the need for that change. So this has really been a collaborative effort, both from the Housing Families First collaborative members and Sacramento Steps Forward. Next slide. And this portion will be going into our monitoring and goals. And so taking a look at the average engagement time, it'll be about a week or so. And the length of time to be able to move in should be just about a month, with grace period of an additional week, 2 weeks or so, so 45 days. Length of participation, being able to provide rental subsidies and assistance for 6 months. The successful outcomes, looking at a 70% positive exit rate, a negative exit less than 30%, and return to homelessness should be less than 10% over 6 months. The requirements of the applicants is really to support underserved communities and specifically families, to fortify the support that families are receiving, and be a nonprofit organization that demonstrates the necessary expertise, experience, again, successfully being able to rehouse families successfully for more than 2 years, and a capacity to deliver the proposed program services. And we would like to ask, when considering the measurement of experience and expertise, data reports, and assuring that you are able to provide the insurance requirements. Next slide. To have at least 2 years experience to success. Oh, I'm sorry, Naomi, can we go to the next slide? Yes. Let me make sure here. Okay. And how does an org qualify and provide proof of this approach? To administer services through racial equity-based, culturally responsive, housing first, and trauma-informed approach. Through the policies? Is there an onboarding handbook? A continuing education policy? A public mission vision statement on the website. These are some of the things that we will be considering. And we can go to the next slide, please. The applicant requirement for indemnification and insurance is to meet the commercial general liability insurance requirements. And that can be found in the RFP for details. But currently, with limits of no less than $2 million per occurrence. So we'll go into the respondent requirements. Okay, so once selected as a funded project, all applicants will be required to fulfill the following: to be able to follow Sacramento's COC's community standards, to be able to participate in HMIS, the COC's homeless management information system, to be able to also participate in the coordinated access system, CAS, and adhere to CAS policies and procedures, and to take referrals and begin service within 60 days of the contract's start date. Again, launching on July 1st of this fiscal year, so that by September, we are able to have that first group of families be able to service and begin to have families be housed. The following are important dates. Again, thinking back to many of you who had concerns about the timeline. Right now, this is the pre-phase one or intro to phase one, if you will. Looking at the RFP, knowing that the review panel will begin on April 8th. Finalists will be interviewed on the 15th. We will come together to make final decisions on the 18th, and awardees will be notified on April 22nd. There will be an appeals window from April 22nd to April 29th. And so those are the key dates for you all coming up. So the proposal content and requirements will be our next segment. So the content requirements, pretty standard: cover page, table of contents, proposal approach, the staffing plan, subcontractor letters, cost of proposal budget, and any conflict of interest statement. What does this mean? Here are the details. So, I mean, cover letter, pretty self-explanatory. The proposal approach really is explaining the course of action, referencing the scope of work requirements. If the respondent proposes any major changes to the RFP approach, specify the changes clearly and include your own implementation timeline. Include important milestones and deliverables, and the staffing plan. So again, knowing that we are seeking proposals from agencies who are successfully expert and experienced in providing supports for housing and rehousing families. We will be looking at resumes, If the key personnel are known, please still include their resume for each member of the project and program team. And kindly, again, I remind you to look at the minimum qualifications on the RFP and the staffing required. Include a job title and short position of the description, the effort and anticipated staff that will be needed in each of the phases of the project, and the training plan. Again, knowing that we have given, again, the short brief time for if there is any new additional staff to be onboarded for the month of July, August, and September. If any subcontractors, any letters from each of the subcontractor professionally listed in the staffing plan mentioned above as well is welcome. I see that there was a question in the chat about any letters of support, and yes, they are welcome if they are a key partner and a subcontractor. Next slide, please. Okay, looking at the cost budget proposal. And again, this is still the content requirements and the conflict of interest statements. For the budget proposal, we are looking for a narrative description as well as a cost sheet, which includes budget items that will be covered by the grant and any that will be covered by matching funds. It should be in proposed line items and identify the basis of proposed estimates. And examples of the cost proposal templates can be found in the appendix. And respondents submitting proposals in response to this RFP must disclose to Sacramento Steps Forward any actual, apparent, or potential conflicts of interest that may exist relative to the service that will be provided under the agreement to be awarded pursuant to this RFP. Next question. Selection and scoring process. So the evaluation matrix and scoring criteria. We will be looking at program design and project management, budget and staffing. When looking at program design, we will be looking at the general program design. And again, in those three pillars, service area, one being housing navigation and landlord-tenant engagement. And you will be able to see the points and the weight of each. Next slide, please. Service area 2 being move-in and rental assistance. And our third pillar, service area 3, being case management and support services. Again, the last column being the weight of the scoring criteria. Next slide. The review of our project timeline, and I know, as you can tell, we have also been concerned about the tight crunch of this pilot project, but if we are all aware of our deadlines and looking at the phases of how we can get this pilot project up and running, I believe that this is a doable timeline, and really looking to work close knit, tightly with our key stakeholders, our providers. I do believe that we can get this done. The contract times will be a 60-day startup time from the contract. So again, if contracts begin July 1st, looking to have that be 2 months out from there. We will be having quarterly monitoring meetings. The RFP period is on. It's live now from February 26th until April 22nd, which is when appeals begin. Submissions are due March 25th, and award notices will go out on April 22nd. The contract period is from July 1st, 2025 to November 30th, 2026. Project period does go from July 1st to 2025 to September 30th of 2026. Close out again, phase 3 would be from October 1st of 2026 to November 30th of 2026. Next slide. Okay. And thank you all so much for holding your questions. I know that we've been trying to answer questions in the chat as we go, but we want to be able to answer any questions that you may have now. So you are free to raise your hand. We do not have, because this is a smaller group, we do not necessarily have to utilize the Q&A feature, but we can come off of raise hands. Okay, so let me start with some of the questions that I see popping up in the chat. Is there a contact email that we can send questions to? Yes, there is a contact email. There is a general RFP email, and then I have also included my email in the chat. Let's see here. The contact information is as follows. You're able to share it on our slide here. Questions, clarifications on the RFP, please make sure to utilize the RFP at sackstepsforward.org. Or you can contact me directly at mdelgadillo@sackstepsforward.org. And yes, Melody, this is going to be available on our website landing page. You should be able to go to sacramentostepsforward.org and you'll be able to find us on the Housing Families Collaborative landing page.
Marjorie, I want to uplift a couple of questions that I got directly. The first one being, is there a cap on admin overhead allocation? And the second being, can you apply for just one service area?
So we have, because this funding is not a federally funded pilot project. It does come from the Day One Families Bezos Fund we have the flexibility of not having that cap or requiring that. So that should answer part one of that question. And then could you repeat the second part of the question?
The second question was, can you apply for just one service area?
You are certainly welcome to apply for just one service area. And we would also encourage those who are interested in applying to really reach out and look at community who's already doing some of the work that we have stated that we're looking to support. So maybe considering applying with a grassroots organization, looking at other CBOs, maybe going in 2 to 3 orgs applying together. That way to cover all service areas, I think would make for a stronger application. But yes, you're welcome to apply for just one. Any other questions that were coming directly to you, Naomi?
Those were the only one. Thank you.
Okay, sure. And
I
I'm
had
really,
sorry about
oh,
that,
go
Marjorie.
ahead.
Kazua, I just had the same question as the question in the chat in regards to domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking survivors. Will those individuals be referred through the survivor CAS and not through, the generalized CAS system? How will we receive domestic violence survivors and families? And how are you screening those? Would those individuals come from the survivor CAS?
Right. So we are, when we get referrals, we will be looking to work with CAS, but we are also hoping to have agencies who are applying directly for this funding to be able to refer some of their own clients, families into this process. So not strictly just CAS.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I have a question, follow-up question to that. If
Mhm.
a domestic violence, sexual assault, sex trafficking supporting agency that works with that population, if they are awarded, would we be able to only work with the population that we primarily serve? Or would other populations be referred to? Would we be expected to work with other populations as well that are outside of our scope? So as an example, we used to have PSAPS funding a few years
Mhm.
ago, and only survivors were referred to us here at Weave.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I can jump in. I
Yeah.
think it makes sense that that's your agency service population. We would encourage you to apply, and then if it makes sense to limit referrals to your agency that meet that align with the service population that you're served, which in this case would be survivors. I think that's totally fine. And the consideration on SSF side would be just to look at our overall pool of awardees to make sure that there is some level of broad scope. So perhaps there are other providers through this pilot that we are, pushing out general population, if that makes sense, or general families. So.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ayana. Yeah, it's a good question.
Hi, this is Kimberly from Cottage Housing. We currently serve about 300, 400 individuals at the site of Cottage Housing with the cottages that we have available, coordinated through, coordinated entry. And we provide all the services that we're talking about, but we're not really doing the landlord assistance. We have our own site where we're doing that service. I see a lot of alignment, but I also don't want to, ignore the fact that we're not really coordinating with landlords. Do you see that being an issue, or do you still recommend us moving forward? What are your thoughts on that?
It's not just, again, we highlighted landlord and tenant engagement. And so if there was a training or supports that you offered as families are moving towards more permanent housing, that would engage them with how to, once they are on their own, be able to keep their permanent housing, any training that you would have on tenants' rights, things like that, that you would be able to support. That would also be encouraging. I don't want to discourage you from applying.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mhm. Tina, I see that your question is, are you planning on awarding 2 to 3 applicants only? Again, that's a rough estimate, but again, it'll depend on the applications that we receive. But yes, 2 to 3 applicants, rough estimate. Flexible depending on applicants that are coming in. I'm going through the chat to make sure that we're answering the questions that are coming in, or that they've all been answered. And please feel free to raise hands or come off mute. If there's something that questions or. And I do want to acknowledge Maeve. I believe that your comment in the chat, if any organizations think that legal supports for residents are helpful, possibly the HERA could be a partner, and we do want to encourage partnerships. So appreciate you sharing that information out there. Kazua, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right.
Yes, you are. It's Kaziwa. I had a question in regards to duplication of clients. So for those of us who have COC dollars, and of course, taking into consideration that these funds are not from one and the same pot, are you requesting that we serve unique individual families, or can they be duplicated wherein we are, wielding together funding to ensure that families who need larger units for rental, that we can basically subsidize the element or the component that the FMR doesn't allow us to.
Yeah, so again, looking at the discussions that we've mentioned earlier, thinking about ways to remove barriers, especially when thinking about larger families and what they face when seeking permanent housing. We do want to encourage any barrier removal. So I would say that we would be open to receiving your proposal, Kazua.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm. And Ayana, thank you so much. I see that you've actually, doesn't seem like there was any question that was left unanswered in the chat. So thank you so much for supports. If there are no other questions, oh, let me see, we have one. From Chase, asking for client eligibility. Can we serve immigrants and refugees? Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, we're happy to stand shoulder to shoulder with you all in supporting our most vulnerable communities during this time. Survivors. Okay. And if there are no other lingering questions, we can just move on to the next couple of slides and we will be able to give, oh, it always seems like when we make that announcement, we get a few more. So what is your definition of the family unit served? Single parent unit, two parent units? I believe this question was answered earlier. And yes, Karen asked, how is family being defined? Ayana's response and our response is we would typically align with HUD definitions, but it's not stated in the RFP, and you're welcome to describe in proposals and in the populations of families that your agency serves. Okay, going once, going twice. Hopefully, Henry, that answered your question. We can move on to the next slide.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Henry. Okay, so again, the resource links are here. We will be sharing this presentation, this recording will also be up on our landing page on Sacramento Steps Forward's website. Next slide. For any questions, lingering thoughts, comments, concerns, the following is the contact information. Please feel free to also contact me directly at mdelgadillo@sacstepsforward.org. And for RFP questions, clarifications, feel free to utilize the RFP at sacstepsforward.org email as well. Next slide. Okay, we will be asking for audience participation, just a quick exit poll. Great, should be up on your screens now. This is just so that we can engage with you all to make sure that we are answering any questions, if there is anything that we need to uplift or spotlight, and to determine if you were able to receive the valuable information needed to feel encouraged and supported in applying to this RFP. Cool. Are folks, okay.
I'm not seeing the poll. Is everyone else?
Yeah, is this Julie?
It is.
Oh, okay. Yeah, folks are able to, we're getting responses now, so it might be perhaps maybe just the Zoom version that you may have. But it seems that folks are able to answer, so apologize, Julie. The first question being, do you feel like the session was valuable in providing answers to any pre-existing questions that you had? Most folks said yes, with one answer being no. Again, please kindly feel free to reach out to me directly if there are any questions that I can answer directly in supporting your application. Okay, Julian, thank you. She was able to reply to the poll. And it looks like there was fair opportunity to provide feedback. Most of you answered yes. Question number 3, is your organization considering applying for these funds? 73% of the audience today responded with yes, 23% answered unsure. And what might be the biggest barrier to applying for these funds? Again, most of you discussed and brought up the timeline with equal concerns for the administration burden and the complexity of the process at both at 32%. So I want to thank you all for your time. Thank you for joining us today, and would appreciate any follow-ups. Again, feel free to directly send them my way. But again, thanking you all for your time and dedication to our community and to ending homelessness in the Sacramento region together. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you.